Today I'm going to be talking about episode 22. This is Born to Run. It's the third flashback episode for Kate, and this is also the last flashback-centric episode of the season, because as we know, Exodus is multiple characters having flashbacks of the morning of 8:15. Uh, and this is like in some ways the penultimate episode of season one. I talked about this last time. It just depends on if you consider Exodus to be one big thing, or Exodus Part 1 is the penultimate. I guess technically the way I'm doing it, Exodus Part 1 is going to be the penultimate episode, because I'm doing Exodus Part 1 as one video, and then Parts 2 and 3 as another video. But I think narratively, this is almost a penultimate, because it's definitely going straight into the finale. You know, Exodus Part 1 and 2 and 3 are very much, the finale, even though that's broken up. But I guess technically it's not the penultimate, but plot-wise, story-wise, it is the penultimate. I'm saying penultimate a lot because it's probably my favorite word. I just think it's such a cool word for such a kind of insignificant thing, but there you go. Overall, this episode is fine. Another solid episode. Nothing too special about it, but again, not bad. Just a decent episode. It's definitely very much the calm before the storm. That settling down before you start things off with a bang. Because I believe Exodus opens up with Exodus opens up hitting the ground running with Rousseau coming in the camp, talk like the others are coming. But this is a Kate episode, and honestly, I feel like part of the problem with Kate, which might be the reason she gets some hate among the fans, is Kate can sometimes be her own worst enemy. And I guess this is part of her character, whatever, but I talked about this in Whatever the Case May Be, where she could have just been a little bit more straightforward with Jack and avoided some of the drama from the Halliburton case, but that blew over relatively quickly as well. But I mentioned she's her own worst enemy because the whole plot of this episode is her trying to con her way onto the raft. But she didn't need to do that. Jin got his spot on the raft because he worked on it. He put in the effort. She could have jumped in the beginning and put a lot of work and effort into it like Jin did, but she didn't. She's just trying to. Once she realizes this is a viable thing, now she's trying to jump in at the last minute. So she could have just done it in the beginning and earned her spot like Jin did. And it's interesting because I think Jack points this out. I don't know if he pointed it out previously or if he's gonna point it out. He probably pointed it out in the first within the first 2 or 3 episodes. But Jack says something along the lines of, whenever there's a chance to run into the heart of darkness in the jungle, you jump. Because it might have been Walkabout. But that is kind of like Kate's MO in earlier episodes of season 1. Is she's doing as much as she can to try and get off the island. She's going to the cockpit. She's going up the mountain for the for the transceiver. She's going with Locke on boar hunting just so she can plant the thing up the tree or whatever that was. She's doing all these things early on to be proactive in trying to get off the island. You feel like she would jump on the idea of building a raft. But I guess story-wise, it's just, had to play out this way. And the flashback episode is fine. mean, the flashback story is fine. I it I kind of wonder if maybe this character of Tom Brennan should have been in it more in some way. I mean, you don't really know how he would have besides flashbacks before this, and you do get that. You do get a young version of him in towards the end of season 5. But I think like maybe have this character. Maybe they could have had this character come back in the Flash Sideways in season 6. Because by this point in the show, it's kind of brushed over. You know how much she cares about this guy, and how important he was to her. Who the actor, by the way, and I'm pretty sure about this. I was gonna double check, but I didn't. His name is Mackenzie Austin, and I'm 95% sure he's Sean Astin's brother. Pretty sure because I've seen him before. He was in an episode of Psych. I believe he's friends with James Roday Rodriguez. Because they were in like some random obscure law TV show that went on for one season that no one's ever heard of, and then he obviously got Psych, and Mackenzie Austin was in the Tuesday the 17th, I think. I think that was like a horror episode of Psych that James had directed. It was like his first directing episode, and that guy was in it, so I just assume that they were friends, or at least close, just like he's friends with Jimmy Simpson. But anyway, that was a random tangent. And speaking of the flashback, something else, which is, I don't know, minor random piece of trivia. During the flashback, you hear a young Kate over the recording. So, Kate is one of, I want to say one of 5 characters to have been played 6 characters? One of 5 characters to have been played by 3 different actors or actresses. Kate's the first one. Maybe you can guess who the other 2 are. I mean, the other 4 are. Why did I say 2? And I'm not counting the Smoke Monster, because that's cheating. But there are 4 other characters who've been played by 3 different actors throughout the season, throughout the show. And I guess onto the main story of the episode, the island stuff. There's not really like I noticed there's not really like well, there is a B plot. Again, the B plot is really the central, like, mythology almost of the show, and it's just simply Jack is brought in by Sayid to see the hatch. Sayid has already seen it, and now Sayid's bringing Jack in to see it as well. I always think it's interesting. Jack's immediate reaction is very much in line with Locke. Of, okay, how do we get into this thing? Let's crack this thing open and get in there. When Sayid is potentially the only rational one, being like, oh, "You guys are crazy. Who knows what the hell could be in here?" But yeah, that's the B plot. It's very minor, and that dynamic of Jack and Locke kind of continues to play a little bit, because you get the callback later on in the episode when Locke questions Jack about not telling anybody that Kate was a fugitive, and Jack throws Locke's logic back at his face like, "I used discretion," which honestly Locke appreciated that. That was definitely like a touche moment from Locke. He had like a little smirk or whatever. But the main plot is the raft. We get an introduction for Arch, who isn't going to be around much longer. Kind of like Ethan, I wish that maybe they had planned a little bit more so that, like Ethan, you get one episode of Ethan before you find out that he's evil, right? Uh, in Arch, you get 1 or 2 episodes of him before he blows up. So I wish that they had known the purpose of these characters so they could have brought them into the show relatively earlier to balance out so that Arch doesn't just appear out of thin air with only 3 episodes left in the season. But that's a minor thing. It doesn't bother me that much. But yeah, they want to leave the raft as soon. They want to leave the island on the raft as soon as possible. And I believe this episode is also, we get confirmation that Jin is going on the raft with them. Now maybe I missed it. Maybe it was just heavily alluded, but I think this was like definite confirmation that Jin is going on the raft, because you get that side of the plot where where Sun doesn't want Jin to leave on the raft and potentially get killed or die. I guess it wouldn't really be killed if it was an accident of some sort. But killed is apparently more likely because the raft gets blown up and they all almost die. Something that I thought was interesting is the conversation with Michael and Walt, where Walt talks about coming back to the people on the coming back to the island to rescue the others once the raft crew gets rescued, and Michael is a little dismissive of it, maybe potentially. I mean, what he says is right. It could be hard to find the island after they get rescued. I mean, we know that it would be virtually impossible to find the island after they get rescued, but they don't know that. But I don't know. The way Michael talks about it, it's almost as if he's not really gonna care all too much if he doesn't find any of these people. That's always kind of been Michael. His first priority has always been his son, and that obviously that boils through over season 2. And I mean, you can't really fault him for that mentality. I mean, you can definitely fault him for some of the choices he makes. I think there's got to be a limit. But just maybe that brief little, like, I'm getting me and my son out of here, and I don't really care all that much what happens to the other people. If we find them, great. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. Although he does end up losing sleep over it. And of course, Walt does end up telling Michael that he was the one to burn the raft. But I guess he wants to leave now, potentially because of the hatch or whatever's going on there. Walt has a special moment and tells Locke not to open the thing, which Locke should assume is the hatch, and we're going to assume is the hatch. And heck, maybe he's really looking in advance, talking about the pearl. That would be interesting. But that's a whole nother can of worms, this Walt telling Locke not to open the hatch. Because opening the hatch, at the end of the day, is a good thing, I believe, right? I mean, Desmond can only go on so long by himself in there, so they need to open the hatch. It'd be interesting to think about. At some point, we'll have a longer Walt conversation, which is just going to be full of hypotheses and speculation. Something else I wanted to mention. I did double check this, and I hope I'm correct, even though I double checked it. This is the first episode written by Adam Horowitz and Edward Kitsis. I don't know if I said those names right, but they're basically like the B team of Lost, and this was their first appearance, because obviously, I mean, the B team writing wise, because obviously when you have a big significant episode of Lost, like a finale or a premiere of a season, it's the A Team. It's Damon Lindelof, Carlton Cuse, usually directed by Jack Bender, who does not get enough praise. But like the B Team becomes Adam and Eddie. I think people just refer to them as Adam and Eddie. I don't know. Like, I'm sure the Once Upon a Time people will let you know more because they go on to do Once Upon a Time, which is also a pretty decent show. But Adam and Eddie become like the B Team. I think they're usually directing. They usually have Tucker Gates directing them for episodes they write. Yeah, so they're the B Team. If you got like an episode that's also pretty important, but not as important as a finale or a premiere or a big tentpole episode, they would write that. And I didn't think like the C Team was Elizabeth Sarnoff and whoever she ended up working with. Because going forward from season 2, you don't get any episodes written by just one person. Like, at some point in season 1, you had the last episode that was written by just one person. I don't know what that point is, because I don't talk about the writers all that much, except for now. But going forward from season 2, all episodes, I'm pretty sure, because this is what I saw, are written by at least one person. I think you even get a couple episodes that might be written by 3 people, because I know, I think What They Died For, which is the penultimate episode of the show, more or less, was written by Adam, Eddie, and Elizabeth Sarnoff. But yeah. Anything else I wanted to talk about? I feel like I said a lot. Not all of it was relevant to this episode, but overall, it was a solid episode. Definitely, like I said, definitely like the calm before the exciting finale. But yeah, and so up next, we're going to have Exodus. I'm specifically going to talk about Exodus Part 1. But first of 3 parts of the finale. And I will see you guys then.